Guys, this is absolutely crazy. Zillow lied again about their housing market forecast. Now, if you guys didn't know, Zillow's housing market forecasts have been extremely bullish for 2022. But I think this article they released not too long ago is probably the craziest you will see. And we finna get into it. Zillow says housing market hot, but not a bubble, economists say. Oh my goodness, I have a lot to say after we finish reading the bits and pieces. 60% of housing experts polled by Zillow don't believe the housing market is in a bubble, compared to 32% who do. The panel, and these are experts by the way, the panel expects to see a short recession by 2024 as the Federal Reserve works to tame inflation. The panel raised home growth forecast for 2022 as demand stays strong. As though home prices continue to break growth records, a panel of housing experts and economists surveyed by Zillow does not believe the housing market is in a bubble. Oh my goodness, hold on guys, we gotta get into this. We are in the biggest housing bubble by a long shot. People are being bidded upwards over 100K over the asking price. And if that's not crazy, we have to also factor in that people are waiving contingencies just to be in contention with other all cash buyers or just regular wealthy investors. Rent is at an all-time high. Places like Miami has had rent rise up to over 50%. And mind you, rent has been a very main focal point in a lot of people's life. Like you can find anywhere, oh, this rent is crazy, rent is crazy. And not to mention, this is destroying the middle class. Let's get back into this article. It's kind of frustrating. The latest Zillow home price expectation surveys pulled more than 100 experts from academia, government, and the private sector to gather their opinions on the state of the housing market and future growth, inflation forecasts, and recession risks. Of those surveyed, 60% said they did not believe the U.S. housing market is currently in a bubble, compared to 32% who think we are in a bubble and 8% who are not sure. Now, 60% of these experts say we are not in a housing bubble. It just blows my mind even more. So this one, let's see what they say. 60% of the survey experts do not believe the housing market is a bubble, and here's their reasons. Recent price growth can be explained by fundamentals such as demographic, shifting housing preferences, and scarce inventory. Credit risk remain low due to sound underwriting and mostly fixed rate, fully amortized mortgages, which is 2.2%. The term bubble implies a secret crash, and there is not likely to be one soon. In real, inflation-adjusted terms, home price growth is high, but not excessive. The most popular reason respondents rebuffed the bubble thesis was strong market fundamentals, including demographics, scarce inventory, and shifting housing preferences. So let's get back into this. Now, 32.5% of people that said it's not a bubble said that it can be explained by low inventory and demographic shifting of other occurrences. Now, is that not what a bubble can pertain to? Because I'm very confused, because isn't a bubble when residential home prices rise pretty fast? Now, are they using housing bubble in a term because they don't want to use the word housing bubble because all bubbles have to pop sooner or sometime. So they don't want to say that because they don't want to say a housing crash is coming. Now, I believe a housing correction is coming. And I think what Zillow is basically doing, they market to more real estate agents than usual, and plus they want to keep this precedent that like the housing market is strong, and they want people to they trick people into FOMO buying basically by putting these incorrect housing market forecasts, and then they go back down when they're more like not correct, which they probably know that they're not correct anyways. To be sure, the housing market is incredibly hot. Home values in April are up about 21% over last year, marking the 13th consecutive month of record-breaking annual home value appreciation. But we're not in a housing bubble, right? Affordability is greatly suffering too, as an astronomical rise in both home prices and rents over the last 2 years coincides with a more recent hike in mortgage rates. However, an extremely hot market does not necessarily mean one in a bubble. This is very much frustrating. So we've been having super high annual appreciation, record breaking by the way. I just want to see something. Let's look up what is a housing bubble. A housing bubble or real estate bubble happens when the market price of residential real estate sharply rises. This will happen when demand for homes exceed the actual supply. The initial rise creates the expectation of future rises. That expectation attracts speculators who invest into the market. BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, okay, hoping to profit from the rising prices. This further increases demand in prices, causing the bubble to stretch and grow. At some point, homes become overvalued and housing prices become unstable. Demand decreases, but the supply increases. Now, if fewer housing prices come crashing down and the housing bubble bursts. Now, as we know, guys, demand is definitely depleting from the market due to the rising interest rates from Jerome Powell. So I'm pretty sure the Fed has decided to pull the plug, and they're going to do more increases throughout the year because they have more rate hikes. And this has put a lot of buyers off the market because they're like, no, this is crazy. I don't even really know what's going on. I'm gonna just wait out the housing market because homes prices are so high, and then mortgage rates has went up, and I think they're up to $2,000 on a monthly mortgage payment, which is prices out a pretty decent amount of people because of inflation just running rampant. And this is the highest since 1980 something. And when the 10-year was with Paul Volcker, who had to raise the interest rates to sky high to stricken the money supply. Although a recession is looking more and more likely, the housing market today is a far different beast than we saw in the mid-2000s. Unlike in 2006, this housing market is underpinned by strong fundamentals and has been built on mortgages with sound credit factors that won't change in the near term. Now, Zillow, that is something that I can agree with you with, but there is a lot of there's different ways to have a housing crash. That's like just saying there's only one way to get into a car accident. There's a multitude of ways. When will the next recession hit? While the panel largely does not believe the housing market is in a bubble, it does foresee a recession coming soon. The largest portion of the panel, 45%, expect the next recession to begin in 2023, which garnered more votes than 2022, 30%, 2024, 8%, or 2025 and beyond, 17%. Although the Great Recession was triggered by a housing crash, it's a relative outliner in the grand history of recessions, which have often strengthened investment in housing due to its relative stability as an asset. Now, this boils down into what typically happens in a recession and how big of a recession are we going to see. In a recession, people get typically laid off. Why? Because the overall economic output is not as high as it once was. Businesses are making less money because people are spending less, and the money supply is strickening. But anyways, during a recession, what do you think happens to home prices? Well, here's what I personally think, and I think this is actually a pretty good way of thinking. I think what happens to home prices is that people see how high these home prices is, and they don't have enough money to afford these homes no more. I mean, the economic output is just not there as it used to be. So a lot of people start moving into their parents' house. I think I saw a study of people aged 18 to 29. 50% of them live with their parents. And that's a higher increasing number. I know it's like a wide range, but that number is a high increasing number. But if you guys read the book, Ray Diallo, he's an economist. I'm pretty sure some of you guys know him. At the recession, typically the economy resets. And sometimes a recession is followed by an economic boom.